There is something that millions of people over 60 put into their body every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, believing with absolute certainty that they are making a smart, healthy choice. They chose it on purpose. They switched to it deliberately, probably years ago, because someone told them it was the better option. Their doctor might have encouraged it. The label on the package practically congratulates them for picking it. It says sugar-free. It says 0 calories. It says diet. It feels like a win. It feels responsible. It feels like one of the few things they are doing right in a world full of confusing health advice. What nobody told them, what almost nobody knows, is that this supposedly healthy choice is quietly disrupting the one system in their body that has the most direct influence on their memory, their mental clarity, and how sharp or foggy their brain feels from morning to night. I am talking about their gut. That smart, responsible, well-intentioned choice is slowly wrecking the delicate balance inside their digestive system, and the consequences are showing up not in their stomach, but in their head. As brain fog, as forgetfulness, as that heavy, sluggish feeling that makes every afternoon feel like you are thinking through wet cement. If you are over 60 and you have been making what you thought was the healthy choice, I need you to watch this entire video, because what I am about to reveal could explain something you have been struggling to understand for years. I am going to tell you exactly what this thing is. I am going to show you step by step what it does inside your gut and why your brain pays the price. And I am going to share a simple switch that people over 60 tell me brought back a mental clarity they thought was gone for good. Before I reveal what I am talking about, I want you to think about your own daily routine for a moment. Think about what you drink during the day. Think about the little packets you tear open and stir into your coffee or your tea. Think about the products in your refrigerator and your pantry that say sugar-free on the label. Think about how many times a day you consume something that tastes sweet but supposedly has no sugar in it. Now think about when your brain fog started getting worse. Think about when the forgetfulness became more frequent. Think about when that afternoon mental collapse became a daily occurrence instead of an occasional one. I am not saying these two things are connected yet. I am asking you to hold both of those timelines in your mind as you listen to what comes next, because for a stunning number of people over 60, those two timelines line up almost perfectly, and they never noticed because nobody ever suggested they should look. What I am talking about is artificial sweeteners. The sugar substitutes that are in diet soda, sugar-free cookies, sugar-free candy, sugar-free ice cream, sugar-free gum, 0-calorie flavored water, light yogurt, reduced sugar juice, and those little packets of sweetener that sit on every restaurant table and kitchen counter in the country. The pink ones, the blue ones, the yellow ones. The ones with names that sound scientific and clean and modern. The ones you switched to because you were told that sugar was bad and this was the responsible alternative. Many seniors tell me they consume these multiple times a day and have done so for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. They put it in their morning coffee. They drink diet soda with lunch. They have sugar-free dessert after dinner. They chew sugar-free gum throughout the afternoon. They are surrounded by it, saturated in it, and they feel good about it because every single product told them they were making the right call. I need to say something important right here, because I can already feel what some of you might be experiencing. If you are someone who switched to artificial sweeteners to protect your health, you did nothing wrong. You made a decision based on the best information available to you at the time, and that decision came from a place of caring about yourself and wanting to do the right thing. There is no blame in what I am about to share. There is no finger pointing. There is only new information, and new information is always a gift, even when it surprises us, because it gives us the power to make a different choice going forward. That is all I want to offer you today. Not guilt, not regret, just clarity and the freedom that comes with it. Now let me show you what happens inside your gut when artificial sweeteners arrive there, because the process is both fascinating and deeply concerning. Inside your digestive system, there is a vast community of tiny living organisms, trillions of them, working together to keep your body functioning at its best. One of their most important jobs is producing chemical messengers that travel directly to your brain. These messengers influence your memory, your ability to focus, your mood, your sleep, and your overall mental sharpness. When this community is healthy, diverse, and balanced, your brain receives a steady, reliable supply of everything it needs to perform well. You think clearly. You remember things easily. You feel mentally present and engaged with the world around you. This community of organisms is incredibly sensitive to what you eat and drink. It responds to everything that enters your gut, and it responds quickly. I want to pause right here because I think this moment deserves some honest reflection. If you have been using artificial sweeteners for years and you are now starting to wonder if they could be connected to the fog and forgetfulness you have been experiencing, I want to acknowledge how unsettling that realization can feel. You did what you thought was right. You made sacrifices. You gave up the sugar you enjoyed and replaced it with something you were told was better. Finding out that the replacement might have been causing a different kind of harm is not easy to hear. So let me ask you something gently. Have you been using artificial sweeteners regularly and noticed that your brain fog or memory issues have gotten worse over time? If that is your story, I would love for you to share it in the comments below. You can simply write, "I switched to sugar-free years ago and my brain has been getting foggier ever since." That is enough. Those words could change someone else's day entirely. Right now, there is another person watching this video who made the exact same switch, who has been experiencing the exact same decline, and who has never once connected the two. Your comment could be the moment everything clicks for them. Please share if you feel comfortable. This is a place where honesty is welcomed and judgment does not exist. Now here is what artificial sweeteners actually do to that community inside your gut, and this is where things get truly eye-opening. Unlike sugar, which your body recognizes and knows how to process, artificial sweeteners are synthetic compounds that your digestive system was never designed to handle. When they arrive in your gut, they do not get absorbed and used for energy the way sugar does. Instead, they pass through your digestive system largely intact, and as they travel through, they come into direct contact with the organisms living there. This is something I see the effects of all the time. These synthetic compounds are hostile to many of the most beneficial organisms in your gut. They do not just fail to feed them, they actively suppress them. They alter the environment in ways that make it difficult for helpful organisms to survive and thrive. At the same time, certain harmful organisms that are resistant to these compounds gain an advantage. With their competitors weakened, they expand and take over territory that used to belong to the beneficial ones. Think of it like introducing a chemical into a lake. The fish that are sensitive to it start to die off. The algae that can tolerate it start to spread unchecked. Within weeks, the entire ecosystem of the lake has shifted. The water that used to be clear and full of life becomes murky and dominated by organisms that do not belong there. That is what is happening inside the gut of someone who consumes artificial sweeteners every day. The ecosystem is shifting, slowly but relentlessly, toward an imbalance that has direct consequences for the brain. There is a second layer to this damage that makes it even more serious after 60. Inside your gut, there is a delicate protective barrier that separates your digestive system from your bloodstream. Its job is to let the good things through and keep the harmful things contained. Artificial sweeteners have been shown to weaken this barrier. They disrupt the tight connections between the cells that form the wall, creating gaps where harmful particles can leak through into the bloodstream. After 60, this barrier is already more vulnerable than it was in younger years. It is thinner, more fragile, more susceptible to damage. When artificial sweeteners compound that vulnerability day after day, the leaking accelerates. Harmful particles enter the bloodstream in increasing amounts, and the body responds with silent, invisible inflammation that travels through the system and reaches the brain. Imagine a house with old windows. The seals are already wearing thin from years of use. Now imagine spraying those seals with a solvent every single day. The deterioration that was already happening naturally now accelerates dramatically. Drafts that were barely noticeable become impossible to ignore. Cold air pours through gaps that widen by the week. That is what artificial sweeteners do to an already aging gut barrier. They take a natural process of gradual weakening and push it much further, much faster than it would go on its own. The inflammation that results from this increased leaking is the direct link to what you feel in your brain. It arrives silently, without any sensation you can identify, and it interferes with the processes your brain uses to form memories, retrieve information, maintain focus, and think with clarity. Many of my patients describe the experience in almost identical terms. They say their brain feels wrapped in something, like there is a layer between them and their own thoughts. They say mornings are heavy and slow. They say afternoons are worse. They say they used to be sharp and quick, and now everything requires enormous effort. They blamed aging. They blamed stress. They blamed poor sleep. What they never blamed, what never even crossed their mind, was the packet of sweetener they stirred into their coffee every morning and the diet soda they drank every afternoon. Now I want to talk about what you can do, because this is the part that carries real, tangible hope, and I want to be as detailed and practical as possible so you walk away from this video knowing exactly how to move forward. The change I am suggesting is straightforward. Gradually replace the artificial sweeteners in your daily routine with small amounts of natural alternatives. I want to be very specific about what I mean and very honest about how to do this in a way that actually works. Let me start with your morning coffee or tea, because for most people, that is where the artificial sweetener habit is most deeply rooted. Instead of the synthetic sweetener packet, try adding a small amount of raw honey. I am talking about half a teaspoon, maybe less. Raw honey is a natural food that your gut recognizes and knows how to process. Unlike artificial sweeteners, it does not suppress the beneficial organisms in your gut. In tiny amounts, it can actually support them. The key word is small. You are not replacing a packet of artificial sweetener with 3 tablespoons of honey. You are using just enough to take the edge off the bitterness, and over time, as your taste buds adjust, you may find you need even less. If honey is not your preference, a tiny splash of real maple syrup works in a similar way. Another option is to simply use a small amount of real cream or whole milk in your coffee. The natural fat and slight sweetness of real dairy can satisfy that need for something more than black coffee without introducing anything synthetic into your gut. Now for the bigger challenge, the diet sodas and sugar-free beverages that many people over 60 drink throughout the day. This is the habit that carries the most artificial sweetener load for most people, and it is also the habit where the replacement makes the most dramatic difference. Instead of diet soda, try sparkling water with a squeeze of fresh lemon or lime. The carbonation gives you that fizzy sensation you might be craving, and the citrus adds a brightness that many people tell me they actually prefer once they get used to it. If you miss the flavor variety, there are sparkling waters available that use just a hint of real fruit essence without any artificial sweeteners. Read the label carefully. Look for products that contain no artificial sweeteners and no sugar alcohols. For the sugar-free snacks and desserts, the change is even simpler. Replace them with small portions of real food, a few squares of very dark chocolate, a handful of berries, a small piece of fruit with a few nuts. These are foods that your gut can process naturally, that feed the beneficial organisms instead of suppressing them, and that give your body actual nutrients instead of synthetic compounds it was never designed to encounter. Let me walk you through what happens inside your body when you make this transition, because the recovery process is genuinely remarkable. When you stop flooding your gut with artificial sweeteners, the hostile pressure on your beneficial organisms lifts. Think of it like removing a heavy weight from a spring. The spring does not snap back to full height immediately, but it begins to rise the moment the weight is gone. Those suppressed organisms start to recover. They begin to multiply again, to reclaim the space that was taken from them, to resume producing the chemical messengers that your brain has been missing. The harmful organisms that had dominated begin to lose their advantage. Without the artificial sweeteners tilting the playing field in their favor, they shrink back to more normal levels. The ecosystem inside your gut slowly starts to rebalance. At the same time, without the daily assault on the gut barrier, the protective lining begins to repair itself. The cells regenerate. The connections tighten. The gaps close. Less inflammation enters the bloodstream. Less interference reaches the brain. Many people over 60 tell me that within 3